Everyone, this is Aaron, and I play Magic way too much. Okay, so the new deck just came out, and I have it here in Chrome, and you can find it too if you look at the top. It says 3dgo.com, and you can kind of fight through and find out the new cards. There's 55 cards, and I kind of took some screenshots of some, and I want to show them to you. But the first card, why did they said, I read a whole thing about it, and they're like, we picked the best cards, and da-da-da-da-da, and we don't want to bog you down with a bunch of garbage. And the first card is target creature gets 2/2 and flying. That will never make it in anyone's deck. I mean, maybe I'm being cynical, but that can't be one of your top 10 white cards. That said, let's just go to the ones I like. So this one is fantastic. And there's about 3 cards in here that are just great. I like this because, well, let me read it. It only costs 8. It's a 5/5 mana creep. Like, it just happens. Or not mana creep, but power creep. So when this creature enters the battlefield, each spell in your hand gains 3 mana. When you draw a spell, that spell gains 3 mana. When you cast a spell, you draw 1 card. So basically, if you have a spell-heavy deck, you can get out all your spells and keep your hand full. Just is going to be in every blue deck. And there's a couple spells that can cost 3 that are really good, Imprison the Moon and stuff like that. So will be in every deck if people have it. Pardon me, I have hiccups. This card is interesting. So it costs 10, and in the blue theme, that wasn't nice. In the blue theme, we're sending creatures back to their hand. So if your opponent controls 5 or less cards in their hand, target creature your opponent controls, return to the owner's hand. Here's the thing, and the first card in your hand with a cost of 8 or less gains full mana. I think this is so interesting, but I don't know if I like it in terms of normally when I need to return a creature to hand, I need to do it now. They had 6 cards in their hand. They cast 1, now they have 5. I have 1 turn to send it back, so I have to be able to get all 10. And then the 8 or less, what if your next card after this costs 8 and it has full mana already? Does that mean that it doesn't get any mana and you don't get any benefit from that? I think so. So just kind of, I think it looks better than it is, but I think it's interesting, and I like that they're keeping with the theme of return creature hand for blue, because that's kind of what blue does. Here's a card that costs 24. Each support your opponent controls is destroyed. This is absolute garbage. This is one of these cards that like you get and you're like, oh, okay, but unless you know who you're playing against, story mode, you don't know that your opponent has like wicked good supports. If you have this in your hand just against a regular deck, it just isn't. It just doesn't make the cut. I just think it's interesting that there's some cards in here that just, I don't know, if you have a use for this card, please tell me. Please tell me. And maybe if they fabricated a whole bunch, but how do you know their deck's going to fabricate a bunch before playing it? So some of these cards just don't have a use. Maybe I'm cynical again. It is late at night and I'm a little tired. I just like this. It's a vehicle, crew 2. For 10, you get a 5/5, a little bit of power creep. It's just a nice card. Yeah, just thought I'd point it out. Here, this is one they talked about in the little description they had, which you may have read too. It's about a 5 or 6 paragraph thing about the new cards. But when a non-token support you control enters the board, energize 2, overload 3, you gain 1 swap. So if you have a bunch of energized gems out there, you can get an extra swap. Now this is so very valuable, and so it's just getting those energized gems out there. There's a few ways to do it, but I don't know. There's a few ways to do it. I don't have a perfect system for it yet. There's an uncommon in the old set that costs, the one that just came out, it costs like 16 to get out. It's a creature. It's a 3/4. And that, when it attacks, gives you a bunch of energized gems. So it's one way to do it. This I really, really like. I know in my Rahi deck, I have that 12/12 that does 5 damage when it comes out. It's also a mythic. This one essentially is a 16/16 because it fabricates 4. And what I like about it is that you can use it on Rahi's third ability. Now there's 2 cards that will work. They're both mythics. They're hard to get, so this is really nice. Here we have a demon for 13 that costs 5/5. And at the end of your turn, this is actually the first, or I'll read the whole thing. At the end of your turn, your opponent discards 1 card. When a support you control is destroyed, the first creature your opponent controls gets -2/2. So in this, I've read all the descriptions of the previous cards, and it said, like, when it talked about supports being destroyed, it said non-token support. This just says support. So if you have something like Tomio's Journal, and every turn a support is getting destroyed, then every turn they get -2/2 on their first creature. And also with black, there's a lot of kind of ideas, like, hey, I can get a discard their hand deck, but there's no real good way to do it. This card is a good way to do it. So I think this could be a good combination with that. I've thought that 2 or 3 times though with discard cards, but this actually is one of the best cards though. I know a lot of these are mythic. Sorry about that. It's just the way it is. Those are the exciting ones, of course. Here we go towards the end. This creature can't block, so even if they have Berserker, they can't be killed. So unless you give this card Berserker yourself, it can never die. So this is going to go in Harizu and that kind of deck, but it gets 2/1 every turn, and it attacks right away. So it's pretty good. And then here we go. For 6, spell card, target. Oh, this is an example of a crazy card. Target vehicle your opponent controls is controlled by you, and it gains haste until the end of your turn. And the first card in your hand with a cost of 4 or less gains full mana. This will never be in a deck. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Now, how do you know your opponent has a vehicle? You don't. There's so many better cards for stealing the other person's creature for a turn. Why put it in there? There's better cards for it, and this is so limiting. Here we go. This was talked about too. Overload 3. Fetch the first creature in your opponent's library to the top of your library, then place it on the battlefield under your control. So you're not casting the card, I don't think, in this scenario. And it's just a very good card. Again, it's getting all the supports out there. Not the supports, but the energized gems. And I think this is the last one. For 5, this is kind of interesting. X gems are converted to green gems, where X is the amount of cards you have in your hand. So the most cards you can have in your hand when you cast this is 4. Is 5 times 4 is 20 green gems. And what's interesting is that it can't, like, circular cascade. Like, once you get 20 gems, 20 green gems, you're probably going to get 30 mana, which is going to put out your whole hand. So it's like you can use this once. There are a few green cards that give you more cards in your hand. So maybe with Nisa, the original one, that might be good. So I just kind of wanted to go over the new cards and see what you thought. What are your favorites? Did I miss your favorite? Let me know. Maybe I'll make a video about the ones I overlooked. But those are the ones that popped out in my mind. And so there's like 3 or 4 out of 55 that look good, and about 15 that will never be used by anybody. What do you think, guys? Tell me below, like and subscribe.